The Palace of Westminster serves as the meeting place for both the House of Commons and the House of Lords, the two houses of the Parliament of the United Kingdom, informally known as the Houses of Parliament after its occupants. The palace lies on the north bank of the River Thames in the city of Westminster, in central London, England. Its name, which derives from the neighbouring Westminster Abbey, may refer to several historic structures, but most often, the Old Palace, a medieval building complex largely destroyed by fire in 1834, or its replacement, the new palace that stands today. The palace is owned by the monarch in right of the crown and, for ceremonial purposes, retains its original status as a royal residence. Committees appointed by both houses manage the building and report to the Speaker of the House of Commons and to the Lord Speaker. The first royal palace constructed on the site dated from the 11th century, and Westminster became the primary residence of the Kings of England until fire destroyed the royal apartments in 1512. The remainder of Westminster continued to serve as the home of the Parliament of England, which had met there since the 13th century, and also as the seat of the Royal Courts of Justice, based in and around Westminster Hall. In 1834 an even greater fire ravaged the heavily rebuilt Houses of Parliament, and the only significant medieval structures to survive were Westminster Hall, the cloisters of St. Stephen's, the Chapel of St. Mary Undercroft, and the Jewel Tower. In the subsequent competition for the reconstruction of the palace, the architect Charles Barry won with a design for new buildings in the Gothic Revival style, specifically inspired by the English Perpendicular Gothic style of the 14th–16th centuries. The remains of the old palace was reclaimed from the River Thames, which is the setting of its nearly 300-meter-long facade, called the river front. Augustus Pugin, a leading authority on Gothic architecture and style, assisted Barry and designed the interior of the palace. Construction started in 1840 and lasted for 30 years, suffering great delays and cost overruns, as well as the death of both leading architects. Works for the interior decoration continued intermittently well into the 20th century. Major conservation work has taken place since then to reverse the effects of London's air pollution, and extensive repairs followed the Second World War, including the reconstruction of the Commons Chamber following its bombing in 1941. The palace is one of the centres of political life in the United Kingdom. Westminster has become a metonym for the UK Parliament and the British government, and the Westminster system of government commemorates the name of the palace. The Elizabeth Tower, in particular, often referred to by the name of its main bell, Big Ben, has become an iconic landmark of London and of the United Kingdom in general. One of the most popular tourist attractions in the city, and an emblem of parliamentary democracy. Tsar Nicholas I of Russia called the new palace a dream in stone. The Palace of Westminster has been a Grade 1 listed building since 1970 and part of a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1987. The site of the Palace of Westminster was strategically important during the Middle Ages, as it was located on the banks of the River Thames. Known in medieval times as Thorney Island, the site may have been first used for a royal residence by Canute the Great during his reign from 1016 to 1035. Saint Edward the Confessor, the penultimate Anglo-Saxon monarch of England, built a royal palace on Thorney Island just west of the City of London at about the same time as he built Survive. The oldest existing part of the palace dates from the reign of William I's successor, King William II. The Palace of Westminster functioned as the English monarch's principal residence in the late medieval period. The predecessors of Parliament, the Witenagemot and the Curia Regis, met in Westminster Hall. Simon de Montfort's Parliament, the first to include representatives of the major towns, met at the palace in 1265. The Model Parliament, the first official Parliament of England, met there in 1295, and almost all subsequent English parliaments and then, after 1707, all British parliaments have met at the palace. In 1512, during the early years of the reign of King Henry VIII, fire destroyed the royal residential area of the palace. In 1534, Henry VIII acquired York Place from Cardinal Thomas Wolsey, a powerful minister who had lost the king's favour, renaming it the Palace of Whitehall. Henry used it as his principal residence. Although Westminster officially remained a royal palace, it was used by the two Houses of Parliament and by the various royal law courts. Being originally a royal residence, the palace included no purpose-built chambers for the two houses. Important state ceremonies took place in the Painted Chamber, originally built in the 13th century.